Okay, tell me why half the runway shows lately look like they were styled by an actual Renaissance queen. We've got corset-inspired tops, those dramatic puffed sleeves, and embroidery so intricate it could have been hand-stitched by a 16th century artisan. And don't even get me started on how velvet is making a major comeback. But have you ever wondered where all these trends actually come from? Like, why are we still dressing like we're about to sit for a royal portrait? Well, today we're throwing it back, way back, to the Renaissance, aka the birth of haute couture. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because this is just the start of our Threads of Time mini-series. Next week, we're going full-on decadence with the extravagance of 18th century French fashion, the age of Marie Antoinette. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. All right, let's get into it. So let's rewind to the 15th and 16th centuries, when fashion wasn't just about looking cute, it was a literal power move. The Renaissance was all about rebirth, art, and culture, and of course, fashion was a massive part of that. If you wanted to flex your wealth and status, your clothing did the talking. And this is where we see the real birth of haute couture. Meticulously crafted, one-of-a-kind garments made by skilled artisans for those who could afford them. Sound familiar? Yup, we've been doing custom designer fashion for centuries. Now let's talk trendsetters, because every era has its it girls and style icons. One of the biggest fashion power players, Catherine de' Medici. This queen basically invented high fashion politics. She introduced corsetry to France, setting off a centuries-long love affair with snatched waists. But don't let the glam fool you. Those OG corsets were brutal. Made with iron and stiffened linen, they were less about comfort and more about sculpting that ideal silhouette. Fast forward to today, and we're still obsessed with corset-inspired fashion, but now it's all about comfort and wearability. Modern designers have turned them into street-style staples, swapping out the iron for soft boning, satin lacing, and stretch fabrics. Thanks for the inspo, Catherine. But it wasn't just about silhouettes. Fabric choices screamed status. The richer you were, the more extra your materials. Silk, imported from China. Velvet, dyed in deep jewel tones to show you had money to burn. Gold embroidery, literal gold threads woven into fabric. Imagine wearing an outfit so expensive that it could fund a small kingdom. Wild, right? And let's be real. Designers today love a good embroidered moment. Whether it's Dolce & Gabbana's Baroque-inspired gowns or those jaw-dropping couture pieces from Elie Saab, Renaissance craftsmanship is still influencing the runways. Now let's talk fashion police, but make it historical. Renaissance rulers actually made laws about who could wear what. Yup, these were called sumptuary laws, and they dictated which colors, fabrics, and accessories different social classes could wear. Basically, if you were a peasant trying to flex in a fancy velvet robe, you could get fined, or worse. Can you imagine if we had that today? Sorry, ma'am, that Balenciaga bag is illegal unless you make six figures. In a way, we still kinda do this. Think about red carpet fashion. Only celebs and the super rich have access to those one-of-a-kind couture gowns. It's the same idea. Fashion as a status symbol, just without the whole getting arrested for wearing the wrong thing part. Loving the deep dive so far? If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We're just scratching the surface of fashion history, and trust me, it only gets wilder from here. But what makes Renaissance fashion so legendary? It wasn't just about extravagant fabrics and dramatic silhouettes. It was about precision, symbolism, and power. Clothing was a status symbol, and every detail, from the cut to the color, was loaded with meaning. For example, let's talk about slashing and puffing. One of the biggest trends of the era, nobles would take doublets and gowns made of the finest silk or velvet and literally slash the outer layer to reveal luxurious fabrics underneath. It was the ultimate flex. Oh, look at me, I can afford 2 layers of expensive fabric. This style is still referenced today in high fashion, especially in avant-garde designs where layers and textures are deconstructed. And let's not forget the farthingale, the ultimate foundation garment that gave Renaissance gowns their iconic bell shape. Originating from Spain, the Spanish farthingale was a stiffened hoop skirt that allowed noble women to achieve those voluminous silhouettes without drowning in heavy fabric. Later, The French wheel farthingale emerged, creating an even more exaggerated shape. Think Dior's new look skirts, but make it 15th century. Then we have ruff collars, arguably one of the most extravagant accessories of the Renaissance. These weren't just delicate lace frills, they were massive, starched, architectural masterpieces that framed the face like a halo. The wealthier you were, the larger and more elaborately pleated your ruff. Some even reached absurd sizes, requiring support structures underneath. Today, designers like Pier Paolo Piccioli and Alexander McQueen have reimagined ruffs in haute couture, proving that dramatic neck pieces are never out of style. Oh, and speaking of status symbols, jewelry was everything. Pearls, gold chains, and gemstone-encrusted bodices weren't just accessories, they were an investment. The more elaborate the embellishments, the closer you were to nobility. Renaissance fashion was all about excess, and we see that same philosophy today in high-end couture, where gowns are less about comfort and more about creating a spectacle. And let's not forget about sumptuary laws. These weren't just about fabric restrictions. Certain colors were reserved for the elite, too. For example, Tyrian purple, a deep, rich hue made from crushed sea snails, was so rare and expensive that only royalty and high-ranking clergy could wear it. Blue, especially ultramarine, was also a luxury color since it was made from lapis lazuli, a gemstone imported from Afghanistan. These laws reinforced class distinctions because in Renaissance society, your wardrobe wasn't just fashion. It was a declaration of power. So next time you see a designer bringing structured corsets, exaggerated sleeves, and jewel-toned velvets to the runway, just remember, they're channeling Renaissance opulence. Fashion is cyclical, and the Renaissance never really ended, it just evolved. And speaking of fashion getting extra, next week we're stepping into one of the most decadent, over-the-top periods in history, 18th century France. We're talking Marie Antoinette, sky-high wigs, and gowns so massive they needed an entire room to turn around in. If you thought Renaissance fashion was fancy, wait until you see this. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. All right, fashion lovers, that's it for today's episode. If you had fun on this little time-traveling fashion trip, give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment. Would you rock a Renaissance-inspired outfit? I'll be in the comments reading your thoughts. Until next time, stay stylish, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.